Hoogerheide in the Netherlands. My name is Matt Payne and I'm going to be taking you through the action here. We've had some exciting racing already in the junior, in the under-23 men, as well as in our elite women's race. We're now on to the elite men's race, looking to see just if anyone can challenge the might that is Matthew van der Poel here on home turf at the Grand Prix Adrie van der Poel. Will it be a consistent lap of honour from the word go, or are we going to see somebody able to challenge? We are 1 week out from the World Championships at Valkenburg, and it's meant that we have had a record entry for the World Cup here in Hoogerheide, and we've got huge crowds at the sides. The Fritz and mayonnaise, as well as the Glühwein and the coffee's have been going down very, very well. The crowds are getting noisier by the second, and took a little bit of a run out between races and managed to see just how loud it's getting, and it is very, very loud at the side. Our riders trying to focus, try and stay calm and concentrated, which was the message given out by Wout van Aert earlier on. He was looking forward to this, but was fairly calm and been talking to him earlier on. We'll see if that's going to be the case as the racing unfolds. You can see the jerseys being thrown, the jackets being thrown, huge amount of nations represented here, so lots of pit crew at the sides of the course as well. Lots of big crowds out here, so great racing already. And one or two famous names, if you recognise Sven there. Well, he's already been shouting on from the sidelines in the previous races. We'll see if he's going to have some input from the sidelines this time round. Sven, of course, one of the previous winners, having won this race 3 times in the past. So the front row of the grid, Toon Aerts, hotly tipped to be up there in the top 3 this time round. Then the world champion, Wout van Aert, the man who is expected to take the battle to World Cup leader and winner-elect. That is Matthew van der Poel. Laurens Sviek on good form already, a couple of podiums, two second places so far in this season, as well as Koen van Kessel taking the second place. Then Lars van der Haar, who had a bad day at the office, not finishing in Nome last week, looking to redeem himself prior to the World Champs. And then one man who's not going, Kevin Pauwels, down on the front row along with Michael van Torenhout. So we will see if Van Torenhout can get on a podium. He's not made one this year. In fact, the race is dominated by Matthew van der Poel. 6 wins out of the 8 rounds so far, never off the podium. So away they go. Sviek taking a little bit of a flyer there because he was already over the line before they set off. But looks like Van der Poel just closing in on the side of Wout van Aert. They shut the door on him on those barriers now. The rider's going to swing sharp right. Big problems here in some of the earlier races with riders getting stalled on the bridge. They come charging up past our commentary box just at the side of the course, and it's going to be Sviek who's going to lead this up and over the bridge. The huge ranks again, problems mid-race. It's been a consistent issue on the way through. The riders at the front, no problem, straight over the top, and you can look at the queue. The queue's bigger here than it is for the Fritz and mayonnaise further down on the course, so that's not good news if you're stuck in the pack, and that's why everybody wants to be on the front. Not enough room for all 70-odd riders who are here today at the start. So Sviek leading it out a long train now with riders trying to get back into position. Who is going to be able to make the cut? Can anybody redeem themselves if they've been caught behind those problems on that bridge? It's going to require a lot of energy to come back. So it is Sviek who's leading out. Going to drop down into the woods. The woods here making up quite a proportion, about 15% of the course is woodland. And come diving down, you can just see that banking that's been built up that was smooth at the start of practice. It's now almost like a BMX or a mountain bike berm because you sweep round and then a downhill stretch. These riders on a slight downhill, and you can just hear the freewheels whizzing in the background. So lap 1 underway, and you can see here Sviek taking the inside line, cutting across and getting around without a problem now. One rider's going to stall on there. Who is it who causes it? Looks like that was a catch there, and I suspect that Tom Mewson was involved in that. I think he got caught up with Matthew Bulo on the way through. So up to the front comes the man most likely to be there at the end. That's Matthew van der Poel in that World Cup leaders jersey. He can't be touched. at the front of the race series. He's got it sewn up with 6 wins already. Never off the podium, won second place, won third place. But he's taking it on now. This is his home race and he is expected to dominate here. But he's got to be careful. We have the World Championships next week. You can see the riders at the back of this chain all in one long line as they come in and out the woods. The crowd shouting at the sides. Looks like Lars van der Haar, the man at the moment who has a gap to close down in front of him. And Lars right up in contention. However, nobody out of it by any means as yet. Very difficult to work up from the back, but there are some big wide open sections of course, as well as these narrow steep sections. In the bank there, it's about 40 degrees or so. It's got a little bit of a step up on the way round. You can see the riders though following the same line on the way through. You see Ian Fielder, the British rider, going through, the sole representative from Great Britain. And lots of American riders making the trip over, because this being a week before the World Championships, lots of the riders who are going to be competing in the World Champs using this. Oh, nice wide line there, real slide there by Tim Merlier. He's a rider who's coming back into form. You can see him go around that corner, almost two-wheel sliding round there. But they're all being left behind once again. It's that man, the man who is so dominant at the moment, Mathieu van der Poel, behind him those feet. Now, so he goes out hard, he just tried to stay with the leaders, and we have seen him challenging this season. Can this be the race that he makes it stick? Is this going to be the race where he gets up there? The rider's absolutely flat out at the moment, and Merlier going well. He's in that leading group of 3 behind him. The gap's just opening up a little bit. You can just see the speed these riders go around the corner. They're taking a wider line into this, the well-travelled line, the muddy rut that's formed early on. It's been done at lower speed, at practice speeds and speeds of some of the previous races. Now, once they start getting wound up and they're actually on race pace, they have to take a wider line around a lot of these corners. It does mean it's a bit of an unknown quantity when we're watching this. Which corners are going to catch out riders? Will we see incidents and accidents that we've seen in some of the previous races? Well, fingers crossed, it's not going to happen this time round. We could see 1 or 2 slides though, but Mathieu van der Poel cleared the front. Sveek in second, Merlier sitting in third place, about 3 seconds behind him. Then Lars van der Haar chasing with David van der Poel on a good ride. As over the planks goes Mathieu van der Poel, no problems for him, bunny hopping, very, very happy. You can see then Merlier doing the same. Now, as it gets more congested, more and more people are going to run those. Well, Wout van Aert having the bike almost sideways as he went over. Oh, and a big mistake there. And that's exactly what can happen. Once one starts going down, all the rest do the same. So not good news. You can see riders coming off. If you get it wrong, it's a big, big risk. Gianni Bertolini, the one with the most time lost there, leaving his bike behind him, heading towards the side of the course as well. But no problems for the race leader. Coming up towards the upper section, of course, up onto the big banks at the top. Now you can see Wout van Aert goes up and over, has it a little bit sideways. Now, big mistake there, and that is Dan Soet who goes down behind him. Bertolini has to stall, slow down, loses his speed, and down he goes. At the moment, a masterclass being shown to everybody else by Mathieu van der Poel. Comes off, you can see where the sand has been dragged round the corner onto the paving slabs. And then on to the set of stairs. Doesn't look very steep on the screens. It's a full 45 degrees up that bank. You can see 3 leaders through, big train starting to form behind now. Can they close down on those leaders? It's still at the start of lap 1. This section here, the roads come around, they drop down diagonally across the camber before taking the left turn down round onto the tarmac past the start position and up. It's about 150 metres from the start line, uphill all the way to the finishing line here at Hoogerheide. So a number of riders trying to balance themselves with one leg out, going down the slope as the race leader goes up. Now this is where we're going to see the time gap. What has it opened up to already? And it looks like as they cross the line, 9 seconds to Sveek and Merlier. They are the 2 chasing riders going through the chase behind them, being led by Wout van Aert. David van der Poel patrolling that group. Looks like Michael van Toren out in the chase group as Wilcon, Van Kessel, Lars van der Haar, Quentin Herman's in there, Kevin Powell's in there, a man who must be smarting after not being selected for the World Championships next week by the Belgian squad. So is he out to prove a point here today? Will there be a bit of needle between him and the rest of the Belgian riders who have been selected? Now, Wout van Aert, the man we expect to challenge, currently leading the chasing train. He's the man at the front, driving it along. The position he's found himself in time and time again as Matthew comes down, clearly enjoying himself on the way down those sweeping beds at his home turf. We're going to see the first of our sliders on this downhill now. This is a downhill that's claimed a number of victims already this race and at this meeting, and that was Anya Gonzalez of Spain taking a tumble down the way down the front wheel, just sliding out. So Matthew van der Poel takes a little look down at the bike. Now, we have seen mechanical issues for pretty much all the riders over the course of the 9 rounds of the Telenet UCI World Cup. It's something that can affect anybody at any time. The more you can look after the bike, the better. Now, there's no thick mud on the course. There's nothing to stick the bikes together. You know, we shouldn't see any rear mechs coming off. I won't say won't. That's a commentator's curse and guarantee somebody's going to lose one. But it's going to be due to a slip and a slide, an accident, rather than it being debris or detritus that's built up in the bike. So the 2 chasers still together behind our race leader, Laurens Fiek, Tim Merlier, currently at 9 seconds behind Matthew van der Poel. Behind them, 6 seconds back, is Wout van Aert. He has sat on his wheel, David van der Poel, Michael van Toorn, Colin van Kessel, Lars van der Haar, a huge amount of riders sitting there waiting, seeing if he's going to be able to bring them up to the 2 chasers. Onto the bank they go on the steeper sections where the riders are going slower. That gap, that physical distance comes down. The faster you go on the fast flat sections, on the downhill, the long descents that are here, that gap's going to go out. The distance is going to increase between the riders, but at the moment as they go up this bank, you can see just how close it was. Steve Chanel, the French champion, was very happy with his win last time out of the national championships in France, and he was on a good ride at Nome as well. He's nicely nestled in that group. However, out on his own, a position he's very familiar with is Matthew van der Poel. He shouts at the crowd really loud now. Well, Merlier's gone backwards. That gap has clearly opened up between him and Sveik, and into the gap goes Wout van Aert. Now he's in that World Champs jersey. This is his last outing before he has to defend it next week. Is he looking to defend it instead up at the front? Is he wanting to maximise those points in the World Cup? Each of the World Cup wins giving the riders points on their racing licence, and a bit like your licence for driving a car, it's got your picture on it. All our riders have one, but unlike your car, there's no penalties for getting more points. In fact, it's positively a good thing because it shows your worth as a rider. The bigger the races you win, the more points you get. Most points for a World Championship, the least points for what's known as a fish and chipper race or a local race back at home. Now, some real battles developing now inside that Telenet Fidea team. We're getting to the point in the season where riders start thinking about the contracts for next year as well, and maybe starting to line up if they think they're going to be moving away from their home team, the team that they're racing for at the moment. So there's a lot of politics going on in the background as well as we come into the end of the World Cup. That's something we didn't see in Jingle Cross or over in Waterloo. People starting out, some of them for the first races for their new teams. But now at the back end of the season, we've come into Nome and now into Hoogerheide. Riders are starting to think forwards a little bit more. Oh, another dab there. So what? Clearly on the limit and over bunny hopping those hurdles once again. It certainly looks to me like he is trying to close that gap down as fast as he can. Some of the riders will go for a more paced approach and go across steadily. It doesn't look to be the case. It looks like he's right on the limits, going over the hurdles, not wanting to lose any time at all, prepared to gamble. We've seen it go wrong plenty of times before. Well, the Stars and Stripes going through there. Stephen Hyde, the American champion, comes over the hurdles nice and smoothly, but at the moment a little bit further down in the standings. Back in towards those steps goes Van der Poel. Onto the descent behind him, world champion. Keeping his weight off that saddle, pushing down through the pedals. You can see him just dropping those heels down a little bit, just trying to get it a little bit lower, keep a little bit more control. So some really nice technique there. And lots of young riders looking up to these elite riders for tips and for skills on the way through. And a real classic descending move by Wout van Aert there, just pushing his heels down, getting that weight low. At the moment, no answer to this man. So a bit further back, Michael van Torenhout's closing in a little bit here. He's 3 seconds behind Wout van Aert. He's got a little bit of gap, couple of seconds on David van der Poel, brother of Matthew, but Matthew goes through with 8 laps to go, 13 minutes of racing covered. Behind then, on his own at the moment, is Wout van Aert going through in second place. He goes through at 15 seconds down. Then it's going to be as Sviek goes through. So Laurens Sviek, David van der Poel and Michael van Torenhout all together, just a fraction further back, Tim Merlier. And this next group come through. So who's going to be through? 7th place, it's Quinten Hermans leading that group through with Corin van Kessel, Kevin Pauwels, Lars van der Haar, 2 nets. Dan Sok goes through, recovered from that stack. French champion, now Steve Chanel goes through with them. Boris and Vermeesch sitting in and still inside of 40 seconds of our race leader. Well, look at that shake of the head from Laurens Sviek. That would look like it was a flick of the elbow for come through and give us a hand, and nobody was coming through to help him. So it looked like Sviek wanting some assistance in the chase down there, but it wasn't forthcoming. That's a great way to break a group up. Somebody doesn't start working, doesn't do the share on the way through, then it starts getting fractious in amongst that group. Looks like Tim Merlier just starting to close back on to Sviek, just up at the front. Van Torenhout sitting just in front of him. He's the carrot which he's chasing at the moment to try and close that gap back down again. Very smoothly ridden there by Matthew van der Poel. You can see the bike just sinking down into the ruts. No problems at all. Quickly out of the saddle, gets the power down. And that white skin suit looking far too white at this stage in the season. I don't think anybody told the Belgian whether it's meant to be wet and muddy as we move in towards the end of January, but at the moment this course holding up well despite the storms of the previous weekend. It's dried out incredibly well. 10-11 degrees here at the moment, and a 15-mile-an-hour wind blowing across the course means that we're finding that the course is drying very quickly indeed. The sun's been out on a couple of occasions, nothing to write home about, no need for the shades on, but at the moment certainly a very dry, fast race here. 3 laps, third lap of 10 in progress. This Matthew van der Poel leading the race out, 14-second gap back to Wout van Aert. Van Aert on his own in no man's land, quite literally at the moment. Now he is currently 9 seconds clear of Laurens Sviek, Michael van Torenhout. Tim Merlier's in there too. Now it's not too far behind. Now Aerts was one of those riders hotly fancied by all of the people in the know. You talk to the other commentators in the booth here at Hoogerheide, and he was one of the names that was mentioned by most people on the way through and by the riders. Part of the job is to find out what the riders are thinking, and find out what the other people who know the sport are thinking, see if anybody's got any tips on the way through. But everybody was naming one man for the victory. That was Matthew van der Poel. I think short of an abduction by aliens, we're going to be seeing him coming into victory. That gap continues to open out. It's only going out by a second or so every half a lap, but at the moment 15 seconds is the gap. Well, nobody coming in to that pit area. No need for Matthew to learn where his pit was. If you're watching the race last week in Nome, then you'll have seen him come sliding in through the pit. He expects his crew either to be at the front or the back of the pit. They weren't at the front. He went screaming through, going towards the back, and they were actually in the middle. I don't think that's going to be an issue today, because they're not going to be busy in there. And we've gone from the thick mud of Nome to this very fast course here. It is only the artificial features that are causing the riders to get off and run. Hurdles for some, steps for everybody. Well, contrast the styles there. Matthew van der Poel very smoothly over there. Bike virtually upright. You just draw a straight line vertically through him and through his bike. If we see Wout van Aert, if he's going to Bunny Hopman, is he going to take it over? And you see the bike bouncing about underneath him. He moves sideways. It doesn't keep following that same line. It's only slight, but all those little differences add up. Sweet, one of the proponents of running across, not losing too much time for that. Certainly got that dialed. He's been doing the drills, doing the skills over the off-season. And all of these riders will have been practicing the skills through the season as well. They don't just rely on the racing, even though they are racing 2-3 times a week, every week, all the way through from September. A huge amount of training to get the skills required to do this. It looks like he's out on a Sunday club run at the moment. He's smoothly round there, going faster than your average club run though, Matthew van der Poel. Certainly looking comfortable in a good gap now, so he can't bit of too much pressure. He won't want to make any mistakes, but he's got a decent sized gap now all the way from the bottom of the steps to the top. So slides down across that descent, points the nose of the bike down towards the tarmac, and he's going to be on to the start-finish straight for this group with Merlier and his feet go onto the steps. You can see just how warm it is at the moment. David van der Poel with the skin suit unzipped, trying to keep cool. Well, on his way out to complete lap 3, there he goes, flies through, out on lap 4. 20 minutes of racing done, so on progress to hit the time window, which we're looking at around about the hour mark for the men's race. Look at that gap. It really has opened up, hasn't it, between the leading two riders. 16 seconds between Van der Poel and Van Aert. And another look across from Svik. He doesn't want to do all the work here. Keeps on looking out at David van der Poel to do some of the work. They know that Tim Merlier is coming behind. Now, all these riders have positions in the overall series standings to defend. You can find those standings on the UCI website. So you can go on to www.uci.ch, go on to the Cyclo-cross, go on to Telenet World Cup. You can find the standings. You also find all of the live timing on there as well. Just click through the links on the Telenet World Cup pages. Now in the standings, Laurens Vink currently sits in 4th place, and in fact all of the riders in the top 30, with the exception of Dieter van Torenhout, taking to the start line today. So the battles behind our race leader, who you can see on your screens at the moment, are very, very close. In fact, at the moment, Laurens Vink is only 3 points behind Michael van Torenhout, and that is why the two of them will be working very, very closely together. They're going to be keeping an eye on each other. To give you an idea of the points, if you take the win, it's 80 points, 70 for second, 65 for third. The gaps then get closer as you come down through the standings. So if you're the last person to score points, you'll get 1 point right at the end. However, this man's got plenty to spare. Currently 100 points clear coming into this round, and with 80 points for a win, a clear winner of the series. Matthew van der Poel being chased by Wout van Aert. Van Aert behind, 515 points to Matthew van der Poel's 615. Behind him then Toon Aerts sitting at 445. Then it's Michael van Torenhout, 409, 406 for Laurens Vink. Then at Corne van Kessel at 389. He's only 7 points clear of Kevin Powles. Then Tim Merlier, the rider who's on a really good ride at the moment, who's sitting in 8th in the series. He's at 358, so he's going to be moving up. He's 1 point clear coming into this race from Dan Soap, but he's going to be extending that gap. You can see the amount of spectators at the side of the course. Great spot to watch just on the side of the woodland here. And the riders are able to zigzag their way in between the barriers, between the spectators and the crowds here, packing the barriers. Seeing up close and personal this real masterclass from Mathieu van der Poel, still sitting at 15 seconds now. Wout van Aert is holding him, he's let him go. He wasn't able to answer that initial charge, but Mathieu van der Poel not maybe pulling clear as quickly as we expected. Behind him then the chasing group sitting about 35 seconds back. That's Van Torenhout's, Merlier, Van der Poel, David Van der Poel. Corne van Kessel sits a little bit further back, about 54 seconds back, with Quinten Hermans, Toenaerts, Kevin Powles for company, as well as Michael Boris, Dan Soot, Lars van der Haar. And they're just clear of Gianni Vermeersch, currently sitting in 14th place, and he's the first rider outside of a minute behind our race leader. And the pressure's starting to tell, the gap's starting to open. So is the pace at the front starting to take its toll? And Michael Van Torenhout now opening a gap on the riders behind. Can he make it stick? Is he going to be able to open the gap to Laurens Vink? So Michael Van Torenhout at the moment in the standings, they came in, was 3 points clear of Laurens Vink. He has to finish in front of him. If Vink can finish in front of Van Torenhout, up there in the big gap positions, up at the front of the race inside the top 10, where the point differences are big, then it could well be that Vink is able to take it back. But at the moment, Michael Van Torenhout looks to be equal to the task, and it's going to be down to these last laps, heading in towards half race distance very soon. So out on lap 4 of 10. Wout van Aert up and over those hurdles, going diagonally across them, just extends the distance between each of those hurdles, each of the planks. Makes it a little bit easier to get composed between them, just got to get the timing right. Vink doesn't look comfortable at the moment. He knows he needs to be up with the man directly in front of him in the blue. It's not happening at the moment. Well, he's a machine. Every time he comes in there, so smooth with that. I think you could probably take one of the shots from any of these laps and it would be exactly the same lap after lap after lap as he goes up into those steps. That technique looks absolutely flawless as he goes in there. A few dabs of the right foot on the floor as he goes across that cambered section. Dropping down onto the tarmac again behind him. Wout van Aert not giving up. He's experienced enough to know that the race isn't over till he goes across the line. Now both feet in, just moving his body across. You just see him leaning a little bit more, just using his body weight rather than putting his foot out for balance, rather than dabbing it on the floor, keeping controlled. At the moment losing time to Mathieu van der Poel, up to 16 seconds at the last time check out round the course. What's it going to be as they come to the line? It's gone to 17 seconds. It's still continuing to go out, so no matter how smooth he is, he's not got an answer to Mathieu van der Poel. Now the pit crew look on, they're giving out time checks, so they're not needing to do too much at the moment down there in the centre of the course. And the gaps continue to open behind now. Van Torenhouten's feet glued together at the moment. They've got a bit of bunchy rope between them, holding them together. They both know that is going to be the race for 4th and 5th in this series overall. It could well be that if Toenaerts goes backwards much further than the 8th place he's in at the moment, they could be fighting it out for 3rd and 4th place. Well, no styling it up at the moment from Mathieu van der Poel. There's a slight double that you could almost jump down there. Saw 1 or 2 riders doing it in the junior race and in the under-23 men's race. However, at the moment, no styling it up for Mathieu, no styling it up for Wout van Aert. They're still keeping the pressure on. They know that they can't afford to make any mistakes now. Mathieu purely for the win, the prestige, slight dab there. I think the rut round that corner getting deeper every time. We saw his rims disappearing, soon be deep enough to lose a carbon wheel in there. As the riders continue to cut the course up on the way through, but no real mud to speak of, just a slippy debris, just bits where it's dried out a little bit. You can see that slightly damper line right down the middle. That chasing group still continuing to put the pressure on, but they're not closing down the gap. So Tim Merlier, David van der Poel, Toenaerts, Koen van den Kessel, all chasing out. Quinten Hermans, Kevin Powles, Michael Boris, all working hard, but not making a dent on our race leader at the moment. You see him right up on the side of the barriers. Risky when you start getting too close to the edges. Spectators every now and then get in the way. We've seen people getting wiped out before, pretty much clotheslined by the arms going flying. So nothing like that happens on the way through. You can see just about emerging from behind the spectators, Wout van Aert, and it shows you just how big these crowds are. So all the way right around the outside of the bend there. Taking it a long way around, but still the fast way around, able to carry speed around. Mathieu van der Poel leading this race now, 19 seconds clear. Wout van Aert in 2nd place. Currently the Flying Dutchman leading out the world champion. World champion 2nd place. Then it's Laurens Fiek at the moment just in front of Michael van Torenhout, but it's trading places every time we see them. Behind them then David van der Poel currently in 5th, Tim Merlier in 6th, Toenaerts in 7th, and Fiek on the front at the moment. This is the race for 3rd place in the race, but it's also potentially a race for 3rd and 4th place in the series, definitely for 4th and 5th. Fiek it is who's just on the front, just opening a little bit of a gap, but Van Torenhout soon on the back wheel. Looks like Michael van Torenhout just tracking Fiek at the moment, not panicking when that gap opened up. Now we're going to see a move from Van Torenhout to remind Fiek that he's still there. Is he going to sit on the wheels? Does he really want to leave it to a sprint between the two of them? We're on lap 5 of 10, still plenty of time left to put in an attack. Not enough time left to close this man down. I don't think there's enough time left if you left it to the end of the next century, because at the moment he's showing no signs of slowing down. That gap now at 20 seconds between Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert. Don't forget you can be able to get all of the time splits on the UCI website, www.uci.ch. Click on to the Cyclo-cross pages and then onto the Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup on the events. You'll be able to see entry, start list and results. It's also got the live timing on there, and of course all of the official results on the UCI website too. An interesting portent of what's likely to happen, I think, at the World Championships. Some of the other races today have really thrown a spanner in the works of some of the riders. particularly in that women's race, but in the men's race it is going to form. Do you know, I'd love to know how he keeps that skin suit so clean. I can't do it with my cyclo-cross kit at home. These guys must have special washing powder, I think. Either that or we've just got stickier mud where I go around. These guys absolutely keeping it clean, keeping it smooth, no problems, no mistakes, no slides at all. And that clean skin suit, an indicator of just how good these guys are. So completing lap 5, half race distance, 14.15k done, just over that half-hour mark, 32 3/4 minutes. Matthew van der Poel with the race lead. Oh, that's a tumble down. It's not good news. Looks like a mistake out on course. Yeah, it was crashed, and that was, it looked like a touch of wheels on the way through. Well, one thing you can guarantee, you bounce on 2 little bits of rubber, ride your way around a course off-road with loads of other people, you're going to have a fall every now and then. Well, no problems for our race leader, no problems for man 2. However, when we say no problems for man 2, it's 23 seconds worth of problem for him, because that's what he's got to close down to the race leader. As Wout van Aert settled into 2nd place here, is he going to conserve his energy for next week? Well, these two can't afford to do that. They know that they're fighting for 3rd place in the race. And one of them is going to be standing on the wrong side of the barriers when it comes to podium time. Well, I think barring accident or incident, it could well be yet another top spot. And so far, Matthew van der Poel taking a win in rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 and 8. In fact, he's taken 6 out of the 8 rounds so far on the top spot. The only man to go onto the top spot, that was Wout van Aert. The man on your screen is now the world champion, the man who will be defending that title when we go to Valkenburg next week. And don't forget, it'll be Ant McCrossan and Simon Burney bringing you all of the action. Well, they swap places again. Sweet goes up high. Interesting, takes that slightly wider line on his way through. Doesn't need to take his foot out, maybe just carrying a little bit more speed, maybe just having a look for later on in the race. A lot of the riders, when they go, move to the back, they're going to have a little look first. They're going to just look and try out maybe a line that they've tried in training or in practice. Just see if it's going to hold, whether it's going to be any good. That's an unusual line. There's a little bit of wear on the course where Sweet went that time, but not maybe as much as the more ridden line down the centre. Is he looking, he's going to put a move in maybe in another lap's time. So at half race distance, our race leader Matthew van der Poel being chased by Wout van Aert, the man on your screen, world champion at the moment, 22 seconds back in 2nd place. 3rd and 4th locked together, 52 seconds down on our race leader in that World Cup leading skin suit. So Michael van Thorn out in 3rd, Sweek in 4th, David van der Poel 1 minute and 12 down, leading a select group of riders. 5th place for van der Poel, 6th for Tim Merlier, 7th for Toon. It's 1 minute 26 down. He's got Quinten Herms for company, along with Kevin Powles. Michael Boris not too far off the back in 10th place. Lars van der Haar outside that top 10 in 11th place. Dan Soot in 12th. Korn van Kessel in 13th. Gianni Vermeesch currently sitting in 14th. Steve Chanel in 15th. And then Gioli Bertolini 16th, and it's going to be Oz Lorette 17th, Meissen in 18th, Adams in 19th, and Stephen Hyde of the States in 20th. Meissen outside that top 20 at the moment. Well, an intriguing battle between these two riders, very differently built riders. The bigger, stockier, punchier rider. Maybe really in Svik he's looks slightly bigger built. His screens are deceptive. He's thinner than a matchstick when you see him off your screens. He's riding up and down. In practice, going round, it's almost hard to recognise him because he is so much bigger. He's just slightly stockier than people like Michael Vantoren out in the blue in front of him. Yeah, there's not an ounce of fat on him. Well, what must Wout van Aert be thinking? Does he have any answer to Mathieu van der Poel? He's now starting to conserve energy. He knows he's not going to close that gap down. 21 seconds between him and the race leader. That's a lot of energy to expend the weekend before the World Championships. Mathieu van der Poel, I think he only knows one place in the bike race where he wants to be, out at the front. A lot of the interviews, a lot of the times when you talk to him, he talks about enjoying his riding, enjoying his racing. It's always easier when you're out the front and winning. And he certainly seems to be making a habit of that. Behind him, then a gap opened up now. So Svik not answering a little bit of an attack by Michael Vantoren out now. That gap has opened up. So let's see what has happened on the way around there, because it's only opened up a little bit, but that could well be enough. It's currently sitting at about 6 seconds between Vantoren and Svik. So Van der Poel with the right foot out, just getting his balance, giving himself some stabilisation on his way round, up on to the start-finish straight once again. As he goes up the straight, a little look across there from Wout van Aert. Over Wout van Aert's left shoulder, you can see Mathieu van der Poel down below, making his way onto the straight, heading up towards the line at the moment. So through the line he goes, 6 laps complete. And the clock starts ticking. It doesn't need to be very accurate. There won't need to be a digital clock to do this. You could pretty much do it with an egg timer. I think the time gap that's opened up between them. Look at him down over those bars. He's really putting the pressure on, trying to minimise that gap between him and Van der Poel. But as he goes through the line, 22 seconds now the gap. Oh, we want to look back quick because we want to see what's going on between Michael Vantoren and Laurens Svik. Those are the riders who are fighting out for 3rd and 4th place now. It was Vantoren who'd opened up a little gap on Svik. They're all behind Mathieu van der Poel, who's clear at the front. 2nd place, Wout van Aert, one of the few sand sections out on the course, not very deep either. And this is the gap, this is the fight between Michael Vantoren out and Laurens Svik. The gap's opened up between them now. We're going into that last sector of the race, and this is who wants it most now, who is prepared to put themselves on the line and really go for it. Well, looking at Mathieu van der Poel's lap times at the moment, just taking a little look on the screen, and at the moment he has the fastest lap, 6 minutes and 23 seconds. Give you an indication just how quick that is. The fastest lap in the men's under-23 race, which was a quick race, was 6 minutes and 48. Now, some of that is, of course, drawn out, but some of it is just how much quicker the elite men go from the under-23 men's riders. You can see it in the lines that are being taken, taking wider sections.
Then we have Quinten Hermans and back again in the top 10. Right now, Lars van der Haar at 146. Ja, de winnaar is van Golgota, die voor de hoogte van Lars van der Haar de kwartier komen. Daar waren we ook 1 Jesse Gibbons van de leider. Dan Mathieu de Poel. Lars van der Haar is op de toer van de Natura. Hij heeft 34 voor de leider. Lars Svik, die gaat met de 18 rechtstoel. En de eerste winst met de leider.
Well, it's still a face of concentration on Warren van Aert, still trying to chase down our race leader here at the final round of the UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup. The Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup consisted of 9 rounds. This is the final one of 9, and running immediately the week before the Valkenburg World Championships. It certainly has another dimension to the racing, because certain riders will be watching how much energy they put out, how much effort they put into this. 2 riders that can't afford to do anything but go flat out. Michael Van Torenhout and Laurens Fiek behind him. Tim Merlier trying to close them down, gone clear of that little chasing group behind, but at the moment it is Van Torenhout and Fiek who are fighting it out for 3rd and 4th place. In front of them then, Wout van Aert, a lonely ride for him today. He's currently 23 seconds down on our race leader, and that's Mathieu van der Poel. Well, getting plenty of support from the sidelines, plenty of support. We're only just over the border in the Netherlands from the Belgian heartland and from his home. It's his fellow Belgian rider we're watching now. That's Michael Van Torenhout. He's taking a little look over his shoulder each time he comes around those corners, just keeping an eye on where Laurens Fiek is. If he stays in front of Fiek, he defends that position in the series overall at the end of the 9 rounds. He's certainly got the bit between his teeth and has gone clear. As Fiek comes round, he's still focused on the man in front. Just doesn't quite look to carry as much speed around some of those corners. So a nice comparison between the two here. Fiek coming diving down into the corner as we see Van Torenhout goes out in the other direction. Now back with 2nd place, Wout van Aert. Still looking focused, still looking very, very composed. Just seems to have no answer to Mathieu van der Poel. Mathieu van der Poel really is the rider of the season, probably the most dominant rider in any category by far. 6 wins so far out of 8 rounds completed, taking the win last week from Wout van Aert in Nome. At the moment, the rider who's not figuring up at the front, who maybe was hotly tipped by more people than any other, is Toon Aerts. Toon, at the moment, in 8th place, 1 minute 30 down on our race leader. He's in a group of riders with David van der Poel, as well as Tim Merlier, Kevin Powles, Quinten Hermans, Lars van der Haar. Just about hanging on in there, Michael Boris onto the back of that group, but at the moment, they're sitting in positions from about 5 down to 11 on the race. A long way back from our race leader. So the steps and quickly back on to his bike goes the man in 2nd place, but the race leader already on his way up the straight on that climb. It rises up on that tarmac race finish all the way underneath that finishing gantry here, the Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup at Hoogerheide, and at the moment Van der Poel absolutely destroying everybody else. Wout van Aert still getting out of the saddle, still just getting a little bit of extra force through those pedals, using his body weight to push through the pedals. He's not making any dent in. 23 seconds the gap from 1st to 2nd. Now nearly a minute behind to the man in 3rd place, and this is our rider Michael Van Toren out, coming across, just cutting across to the left-hand side. The wind blowing from the rider's right to the left-hand side. The rider's hidden behind flanks of spectators. So to speak, outside of a minute behind our race leader Van Toren, inside of a minute, 7 seconds between them. And is that the race positions decided for them? They were battling it out, changing places in the early stages. But that could be a decider now. A decided move by Michael Van Toren out. Well, it's certainly not sunny enough for shades here in Hoogerheide. The clouds just roll back in again, coming back over the top, just hiding Lawrence Feek's eyes, maybe hiding the amount of pain he's going through, trying to keep in touch with Michael Van Toren out. Or no, hiding for Mathieu van der Poel, because that white skin suit, you can see it pretty much from anywhere out on the course at the moment. It is so bright, and at the moment certainly doing a great job of defending that lead. He's going to take away the win. Nobody can touch him in the World Cup. Will he be adding the rainbow jerseys when we go to Valkenburg next week? All of the riders who have been named will be published by the UCI on Monday immediately after this race. So we'll see just who's going to be in the running, who's going to be fighting it out at the World Championships for the countries that are confirmed and published tomorrow, and that means that we will know who's going to be taking on defending champion Wout van Aert and of course World Cup leader and winner Mathieu van der Poel, and it is got to be Van der Poel who is favourite for that race. Well, the umpire band in the background giving it a rest from the 80s cheese that's been heading our direction pretty much all day. The rave tent that's busy, the disco tent down the bottom. Definitely know the guys in VIP not far down. Thousands of people out at the side of the course around the woods here in Mathieu van der Poel's home race. And the encouragement still coming for the chaser for Wout van Aert. And the man in third place, Michael Van Toren out. You can see our race leader at the moment coming through that gap, still sitting just over 20 seconds between him and Wout van Aert, the world champion in second place, now out at almost exactly 1 minute behind. It is Michael Van Toren out, and then behind him, some 6 seconds behind, is Lawrence Feek. As we move into this stage of the race with 50 minutes of racing complete, the riders now really starting to feel the distance. Time of an hour just long enough to take people over that sprint sort of distance. It's got to be capable of the sprint off the start. You've got to have the speed, you've got to have the skill, but you've got to have the endurance to last an hour's racing. Some of the races has gone out nearer to an hour and 10 minutes this season, but this one's going to be just over the hour mark. But when you get tired, that's when you make mistakes, that's when you find slips and slides. That's why in football all the goals tend to be scored in the later stages of the match. That's when people make mistakes, and that is what maybe Wout van Aert is now relying on. Maybe somebody will make a mistake in the shape of Mathieu van der Poel, and if he does make a mistake, is going to be there to profit? Will he be able to take advantage of that? Well, a slight mistake for Michael Van Toren out as he came round that corner, and just a little bit of a dab from his foot down just to kick himself back up and put himself back in balance. I don't think it's going to cost him too much time. So Wout van Aert goes on to this slippy section. You just see there's a little bit of a rut that's been formed in there. He drops down onto the tarmac almost at exactly the same time that Mathieu van der Poel goes through. 2 laps left to go here at Hoogerheide in the Netherlands. The final round of the 2017-18 Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup. At the moment in second place, unable to do anything about the Flying Dutchman. It is the world champion Wout van Aert sitting at 20 seconds, so the gap has come down ever so slightly. It's only 1 or 2 seconds. Can't imagine for one moment that Mathieu van der Poel has blown, that he's run out of energy. Could it be that Wout van Aert now realises he can push on a little bit, just close that gap down a little, or is it just Van der Poel riding a little bit more conservatively? Meanwhile, the battle for 3rd and 4th. Wow, it looked like I've cursed it by saying that Michael van Torenhout got the race sewn up, that he got the gap, and that was the position settled. Maybe I should say that more often, because Sveik's gone back on his wheel again. Oh, how many times can Sveik do this? It's now 2 laps to go. We have 2 riders fighting out for 1 place on the podium. Still trailing this man, Mathieu van der Poel. You can see just how quick he is down this section. It does drop down, but you can't see on your screen. So it's a drop of about 3 or 4 metres once you come out of the woods down to the VIP area. The VIP is being segregated from the riders by a neutral zone as well on the way through. Always comes in handy with the amount of fun that's being had in the VIP tent when the riders come past. So Sveik sitting on the wheel of Van Torenhout. Who's going to win this little battle here? This battle between these 2 riders that have been very evenly matched. They've raced it out all season, and now we're suddenly into the last round. It's Sveik who's had 2 podiums. He's had 2 second places. The best position for Michael van Torenhout to date was a 4th place, and that was at Waterloo in the States. Other than that, he's had a 5th place in Zeven and a 5th place in Nome. So Nome got a 5th, and Sveik got a 6th. So if it goes to last week's form, it'll be Van Torenhout who is in that 3rd place spot, following Wout van Aert, who's on your screens at the moment, just coming into the climb back up into the woods. Back wheel just sliding out round underneath Mathieu van der Poel. No panics, no worries from him, no flapping, straight back on. Puts the pressure down, keeps the bike underneath him, keeps it firmly in control. Now coming back into the woods, here comes Van Torenhout and Sveik. Now is Sveik going to try and make a move? Can he try and get ahead of Van Torenhout up onto the bank? They come up into the woods and they're going to be dropping down again. Course designers here in Hoogerheide really making the use of the terrain. Hoogerheide is situated just on the edge of the floodplain. Well, it or hate it, that bike, that Canyon bike underneath Mathieu van der Poel certainly doing the business today. No mechanical issues so far for him, no mechanical issues for anyone that we've seen particularly behind. It's be a quiet day for the pit crews. Not having too much work to do, which they'll be glad of after Nome last week, which was a real mud bath. And I mean, they'll have a little bit less pressured preparation for the World Championships that are coming up next week. I think there'll be at least 2 of the crews going apoplectic on the way past the pit, though. That's going to be the pit crew for Laurens Fiek and Michael van Torenhout, because they will want to come out the top. The pit crews take as much pride in their riders' performance as the riders, I think, some of their times. Now Wout van Aert smoothly round the corner, quickly back out of the saddle, not looking to lose any speed, wanting to keep that power down. And the gap at the moment is starting to come down. Mistake there now by Mathieu van der Poel. It's a little bit of a tricky section. You come from one section of tarmac onto the next, but crossing the grass verge in the middle. And a mistake there. It's one of the few mistakes we've seen him make. The gap at the moment, 17 seconds. It's going to be 1 lap to go. He's going to get the bell at the line next time. So the gap's come down slightly. So Rodney goes off the slightly sandy section down. So this is where that slight slide out as they go from one section of roadway to the other. They're slowing down a little bit, but still the gap remains now 16 seconds. So the gap is coming down a little bit. It's going to get closer, but it's Mathieu van der Poel now thinking a little bit about that World Championships. He can't afford to do that too much. If he relaxes, it'd be like that classic case of being the mountaineer coming down off the mountain, making a mistake, rather than on the way up when you're tired, when you're elated, when you know that you've done it. If you take your foot off the gas, if you maybe lose concentration, that's very easy to make a mistake. And could that then cost him too much? Well, here he comes. He's going to get the bell with 1 lap left to go here at Hoogerheide. Wout van Aert just shadowed behind the crowds, just coming around that right-hand bend. Now that gap had gone out at one stage. It was out at 24 seconds. It's come down. What's it going to be at the line with 1 lap left to go? Oh, so he goes through 15 seconds. It's come down again. So it's come down more than 5 seconds in that last lap. Has Wout van Aert got enough left to close down on Mathieu van der Poel? It's got to be a big ask, surely, at the moment. So Van Aert's going after Van der Poel. Can he get that gap down? Can he close the time down? How much energy is he prepared to expend before we move on to those World Championships that are only a week away? New course, new design course, some big changes there. We're talking to the riders just before the start of the race, and it's going to be really exciting because there's been some changes to a lot of the corners out at Valkenburg. A lot of changes, more off-camber chucked in there as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how the riders respond to that and how many riders are looking to conserve energy as we come into this last lap now. Are they going to content themselves with the position that they've got? Wout van Aert 15 seconds down on Mathieu van der Poel, behind then Laurens Fiek and Michael van Torenhout, both still together, 1 minute 30 seconds down. So Mathieu van der Poel with a gap, but not as big as we have seen it in previous races. We've seen it going out well over a minute at times. This time round, we're now sitting currently at 16 seconds between him and second place. So are we seeing Mathieu van der Poel easing back, just taking it a little bit steadier because he knows that he's got the World Championships coming? It's a risky tactic, One slide, one mistake, it could cost him this race victory, because it's not that big a gap back. 16 seconds. If you slide out, you get a foot down at the wrong moment, and we've seen him make mistakes already. That could be enough to make the difference. Wout van Aert doesn't look to be easing off. He certainly looks to be really on it at the moment. You can see that bike moving around underneath him, still getting the pressure down, still getting the power down. The gap is holding still, 16 seconds, first to second place at the moment here in Hoogerheide, the final round of the 2017-18 Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup. We've raced it out best part of 9 hours, over 9 hours of racing, all the way from Jingle Cross in Iowa, through Waterloo in the States to Coxhider, Bogenza to Zeven and Citadel Namur, through Zolder, across to Nome in Normandy last week, and now here in Hoogerheide in the Netherlands. And yet these riders hardly separate, 16 seconds, and another slide there. So another foot down there by Mathieu van der Poel. He doesn't panic when it happens, but every time it does, it shows he really is still on the limit. He's pushing it all the way to the edges of those tyres, all the way to the edges of the course, and all the way to the limits of the grip. You can see the distance between them, the two riders coming down almost simultaneously, but Wout van Aert having to make that turn back up, the 180-degree turn up, and then back round the outside of that bend. There's a Mathieu van der Poel cheered on by home crowds in his home race, and that last lap continues to try and eke out that gap again, not use too much energy, not make any mistakes now. Over an hour's racing already underneath his wheels, and no problems once again, smoothly over those planks. Oh, it was a little bit ropier there, a little bit more sketchy for the world champion as he went over. It's not his favourite part of the sport, it's the bunny hopping sections of it, and certainly didn't look as comfortable as Mathieu van der Poel as he went up and over those hurdles. The gap down, it's down to 13 seconds. Well, it's easy to look smooth when you're going slower. It's much harder to look smooth when you're going flat out and on the limit. At the moment, Mathieu van der Poel, 14 seconds clear. He knows what that time gap is. He knows he's now on his way in to taking victory once again. It's going to be 7 victories out of 9, so long as he can carry this down to the line, and virtually no course left to trouble him on the way down. A descent down towards the base of those steps, up the steps, the diagonal descent of that cambered slope onto the tarmac, and he's going to be heading in. And he's up onto those steps. So one more descent for Mathieu van der Poel here at his home race of Hoogerheide, following that rut that's built up over the 2 days of practice and racing here at Hoogerheide onto the tarmac. And the crowd really making some noise here. And the crowd packed 6-7 deep at the edges, welcoming home the man who's going to take victory, who's going to take away that World Cup leader, take the World Cup win. The man who's been dominant all season in the race before the World Championships, the elite men's victor from the Netherlands, from Hoogerheide. It is Mathieu van der Poel. Well, second place again for Wout van Aert. Wout comes through 8 seconds in deficit to the race leader, the world champion, coming in across the finishing line and straight into the media tent here at Hoogerheide. There behind, the battle for 3rd and 4th place was still being fought out. A gap had been opened up whilst we were watching our race leader, and Michael van Torenhout had again put the pressure on, and Sveit was trying to respond. We'll have to see who is going to come into sight next, because This is a battle for the last spot on the podium. Here they come onto the steps, so it looks like the early attack has gone from Van Toren out. He wouldn't have wanted to leave it to a sprint, and it looks like the bigger rider is being trailed behind here. So Svik it is who is going to be off the podium this time round. So Michael Van Toren out descends to the tarmac for the last time here at Hoogerheide for 2017-18 at Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup. Time gap between him and our race leader really irrelevant in his eyes now, I'm sure. He's just looking over his shoulder. He wants to make sure, and you can see what that's meant to him. He knew he needed to finish in front of Svik now. Will he be able to take a third place in the series overall? Will Toon Aerts have dropped enough points? Well, one man who's actually helping him out here is going to be Svik, as Svik takes the position behind Michael Van Toren out. So Laurens Svik are crossing the line there in fourth place, just inside of 2 minutes behind Mathieu van der Poel. Now, last time a check, Toon Aerts was behind. He should be sprinting all the way to the line, but look at this, it's going to be, I think, just coming in to cross the line. It's going to be Kevin Powles now. Powles, who wasn't selected for the World Championships, comes in front of Merlier, and then it is Toon Aerts now. That could well be enough now to change the positions in the top three, so it could well be that Toon Aerts has now dropped down to fourth, if not fifth place. You can see just how much effort he put into coming into the finishes. David van der Poel crosses the line. He's going to take 8th place here at Hoogerheide. And it's going to be Lars van der Haar in 9th. So Van der Haar with a much better race than last week, coming in with a top 10 in 9th. And then it's going to be Michael Boris rounding out the top 10 for the Czech Republic. So 10th is Michael Boris in 11th place. Quinten Hermans, 12th place. Nice a Telenet Fidea fight out once again. This time Conor van Kessel taking the place from Dan Soot. I'm going to see Steve Chanel, the French champion, cross the line inside that top 15, a 14th place for him, and then Gianni Vermeersch in 15th. So some great racing here all through the day, the men's race, with perhaps a predictable race winner in the shape of Mathieu van der Poel, 6th place going to Wout van Aert, 8 seconds down. Michael Van Toren out coming through in 3rd place. 4th place at Laurens Svik, and it is 5th for Kevin Powles, 6th for Tim Merlier, 7th for Toon Aerts, 8th for David van der Poel, 9th for Lars van der Haar, and 10th place for Michael Boris. So don't forget, you can get all of the confirmed results on the UCI website. That's www.uci.ch. You can follow the links to the live timing. The live timing will of course be in operation for the World Championships, which will be coming up next weekend from Valkenburg, Limburg. I'll be bringing you all of the action from there in all of the races. And don't forget, there's going to be all the results on the website, all the lap splits from this, and of course the overall standings in the Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup overall. So after the 9 races are all added up and all those points totaled up, the final standings will be there for all to see. So some of the names that were very, very hot maybe 12 months ago in the shapes of people like Musen and Wildhaber, still crossing the line just inside of the top 30. So whilst the names at the front have stayed the same from last year, the people behind really starting to change. Seeing some newer faces just moving up into the front. Some exciting racing all day here in the younger categories as well, the under 23 and the junior men's races, and not without incident. So the crowds start to make their way up towards the podium here in Hoogerheide. The Fritz and Mayonnaise stands do their final business of the day. Don't forget, we'll be bringing you the podiums from here in Hoogerheide, so stay tuned for that. We'll also be bringing you the standings as soon as they're confirmed. The UCI team here on site making sure that all of the results are correct and everybody's happy before, of course, they let us know and we can let you know.
Coming to the finish line, so please be careful over there.
So done with the riders just outside that top 10 that was rounded out by Michael Boros. Quinton Holmes in 11th, Colin Van Kessel in 12th, Dan Sud in 13th, Steve Chanel 14th, and then in 15th place was Vermeesh, Urs Lorette in 16th, Bertolini 17th, Meissen in 18th, Ernouts 19th, Kleb in 20th, Jens Adams 21st outside that top 20, and Dietersvik 22nd, 23rd was Steve Hines, the American champion, coming through in 23rd place. Tom Musen 24th, Mathieu Boulot of France in 25th, 26th was David Bernard, and then Luca Bredo of Italy 29th, Marcel Weidhaber in 28th, Serin Sagasa in 29th, and then Jan Desvabada in 30th. Fastest lap time of the day, well, no surprises there. Matthew van der Poel, 6 minutes and 23 seconds, 5 seconds faster than the second fastest person, Wout van Aert, with a 6:28. Laurens Vink, third fastest lap, a 6 minute 30 second lap, 1 second faster than Tim Merlier. In fact, 2 seconds faster than Michael Van Torenhout, but it was Michael Van Torenhout who took that third place overall. So the crowds are steadily gathering for the podium presentations here at Hoogerheide. The sun starts to set. It's been a dry day for the spectators, many of whom got a real circuit with that over in Nome. I'm sure all will be heading to Valkenburg for 2 days of competition for the World Championships. So that's coming up next weekend. I'm sure you'll be tuning in, all of the action being brought to you on your TV screens, and don't forget you'll be able to find the links to those on the UCI website, www.uci.ch, and details of all of the stations covering the World Championships. The action for UCI being brought to you by Anthony McCrossan and Simon Burney, and they will be putting words to the action next weekend. Well, you can hear in the background the disco tent still in full action. In fact, from our commentary position, we can see the disco lights starting to flash the way out across the VIP tent, busy as a while. Thousands of people are making their way down to Hoogerheide for the racing here today. Great to see so many people at the side. Big contingents from all around the world supporting riders, and a huge entry here, well over 280 riders, a record for a World Cup here in Hoogerheide. Many of whom, of course, going on to those World Championships that we've mentioned, and I'm sure we're going to see many of those riders joined as well by a number who didn't make Hoogerheide but will be racing. However, some interesting selections have already been made. All of the entrants for the World Championships will be confirmed tomorrow. That's on Monday. But the Belgian team not selecting Kevin Powles, and Kevin Powles, of course, right up there in contention in 5th place in the race. So that is a risky tactic, not putting KP in, and he goes and gets a 5th place in the race here this weekend. So I think there'll be some questions to be answered, and I'm sure the internet will be full of people asking why is he not there. We will see. So we're going to have a quick
Mathieu van der Poel, many congratulations with your victory. Are you satisfied with today's win?
Yeah, I'm satisfied. Maybe the feeling could be a little bit better, but yeah, I had a very tough week of training, and I think several riders are doing this and hoping for a super compensation for next week.
Yeah. Because you're the biggest favorite, of course, for next week. You have to deal with that, eh?
Yeah, I know, but there was always a story when I'm at a championship, so it's that way since I've been young, and I don't feel like extra pressure of that, and yeah, I think now I have to be good next week. I'm gonna rest a little bit next week and do some interval training, and then I hope to be at my best next week at the championship.
We wish you all the best. Thank you very much, Mathieu van der Poel.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if that training pays off. So Mathieu van der Poel on the back of a very hard section of training now. Will that pay off? Will he be at the forefront? Will he take back those rainbow bands? Valkenburg, we will have to wait and see. And he'll be looking to take them from. Man who's second in the race, Wout van Aert. And almost not even a look across there from Van Aert and Van der Poel as they came through and head to the podium.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you're completely ready for the final award ceremony. Introduced, please, by our tune. Your attention please for the official UCI award ceremony after the big final of the Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross. Welcome the Grand Prix A3 van der Poel today in Hoogerheide. In 3rd place, representing Belgium.
Derde plaats uit België. Een applaus voor Michael van Toerenhout. Krijgt de bloemen van Meisje, de rondemis van JNF Mode. En uiteraard daarbij de warme zoenen op de wangen voor de nummer 3 hier in Hoogerheide, Michael van Toerenhout.
In 2nd place, after an amazing battle once again, 2nd place today for the reigning world champion representing Belgium.
Een geweldig applaus voor de huidige wereldkampioen uit België, de nummer 2 van vandaag, Wout van Aert. Uiteraard voor Wout zijn er ook de zoenen van Mijntje, zijn er de bloemen, allemaal met de druk van JNF Mode.
And then Hoogerheide, last but not least, the winner of the Grand Prix A3 van der Poel, the reigning European champion representing the Netherlands.
De winnaar van vandaag, de huidige kampioen van Europa en van Nederland, Mathieu van der Poel. En uiteraard zijn daar ook voor Mathieu de zoenen en de bijbehorende bloemen van Mijntje. We zouden bijna zeggen mijn, want zo groot is de rollenmist van JNF Mode. Uiteraard zijn daar nog meer prijzen voor de mannen op het podium. Zo hebben wij de heer Hansi Swinkels, lid van de gedeputeerde staten van de provincie Brabant. Zometeen met de mannen hier de extra prijzen. Maar ik denk dat we eerst gaan luisteren, denk ik Nico, aan dat mooie nationale volkslied van Nederland, het Wilhelmus.
Of course, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask your attention please for the national anthem of the Netherlands.
So race victory going to Matthew van der Poel, second place to Wout van Aert, third place to Michael van Torenhout. A cracking course here. And the racing going to form. Would it be a precursor for the World Championships at Valkenburg?
Even nog terug, want we hebben de mannen nog meer in de handjes te geven. Niet alleen de bloemen, maar we hebben dus de heer Henry Swinkels.
So it's been confirmed that that ride by Michael van Torenhout was sufficient to move him above 2 minutes to stay clear of Lawrence Vick in third place in the Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup standings. That means he takes that third place away at the end of the 9-race series. Wout van Aert holding on to second place. But our series winner, there was only going to be one series winner here today because he had it wrapped up nice and early, taking 7 wins, 1 second place, 1 third place over the 9 rounds. Matthew van der Poel, the European champion on home turf, takes the win, has it confirmed, and wraps up the series here in Hoogerheide.
Dat zijn de mannen van vandaag en dat zijn de mannen die primus varen hier in Hoogerheide. De nummers 1, 2 en 3 van de grote prijs A3 van de Poel. Zullen we straks een klein primusje op gaan drinken.
So as beers presented to the riders and the crowd applaud their Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross series winner. The riders make their way off stage, and we will be wrapping up the coverage here at Hoogerheide. So my name's been Matt Payne. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy the World Championships next week.
Ja, we gaan er aan beginnen met de mannen op het podium. Derde plaats in het eindklassement van de Telenet UCI Wereldbeker veldrijden seizoen 2017-2018. Een geweldige derde plaats voor Toon Aerts.
He's getting his trophy out of the hands of Mr. Harald Tiedeman Hansen, member of the UCI Management Committee and also the president of the UCI Cyclo-cross Commission. Third in the overall ranking, representing Belgium, Toon Aerts.
En ook voor een derde plaats van het klassement zijn er uiteraard de zoenen van de Rotterdamse Mijntje en de bloemen erbij voor Toon Aerts. Van de derde plaats gaan we naar de tweede plaats in het eindklassement van deze Telenet UCI Wereldbeker veldrijden 2017-2018 uit België.
Second in the overall ranking in this season of the Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup, the reigning world champion representing Belgium, Wout van Aert.
En uiteraard voor Wout ook de trofee die hoort bij de tweede plaats in het eindklassement, aangeboden door de heer Harold Tiedeman Hansen, afgevaardigde van de Union Cycliste Internationaal. Ook voor Wout van Aert zijn er de zoenen, zijn er de bloemen met onze rondemis van de GNF mode met Mijntje. De felicitaties dus voor de nummer 2 in het eindklassement, Wout van Aert. Dan hebben we nog een hele mooie trui, want na alle wedstrijden hebben we een eindwinnaar voor deze Telenet UCI World Cup veldrijden 2017-2018 uit Nederland. De winnaar van de wereldbeker, Mathieu van der Poel.
Taking the overall victory this season in the Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup, receiving his white and red jersey, receiving the congratulations, receiving once again a big trophy, kisses and flowers coming up for the guy on the highest step of the podium. The overall victory for Mathieu van der Poel.
En uiteraard de prijs opgehangen door Harold Tiedeman Hansen, afgevaardigd van de Union Cycliste Internationaal. Ook de zoenen, andermaal van Mijntje voor Mathieu van der Poel en de bloemen erbij. En ook voor de mannen op het podium een hele mooie fles wijn aangeboden. Geschonken door Rudy Mees van Wijnhuis Listmonde te Kruijbeke. Het wijnhuis die ook de wijnen in de VIP heeft verzorgd vandaag hier in de Hoogerheide. De wijnen voor de laureaten dus, aangeboden door Rudy Mees van Wijnhuis Listmonde te Kruijbeke.
En de wijn wordt met blijdschap in ontvangst genomen. En we gaan nu allerlaatste oorverdovend applaus vragen voor de heren op het podium. Ton Aert, Wout van Aert en Mathieu van der Poel. Congratulations guys, well done.
Inderdaad, een dikke proficiat voor dat eindpodium hier in Hoogerheide. Het eindpodium van de Telenet UCI World Cup veldrijden 2017-2018. We hebben een paar mooie races gezien inderdaad vandaag hier in de Hoogerheide, Nico. En ik denk dat het een mooie opmaat gaat worden naar de komende week. De strijd om de wereldtitel in Valkenburg.
Het belooft wat te worden, de strijd om de regenboogtrui zaterdag en zondag aanstaande op de mythische flanken van de Kouberg. En wij moeten natuurlijk nog een aantal mensen van harte danken voor hun inbreng.
Ja, en dat doen we uiteraard aan de heer Henry Swinkels, lid van de gedeputeerde staten van de provincie Noord-Brabant. Uiteraard danken wij ook de burgemeester van de gemeente Hoelsrecht, de heer Steven Adriaanse, en Ed Vreeman, directievoorzitter van de Rabobank Zuidwest-Brabant, voor het uitreiken van de prijs van vandaag. Special words of thanks also to Mr. Harold Tiedeman Hansen, deputy of the Union Cycliste Internationaal. Dan gaan we er langzaam een eindje aan breiden hier in Hoogerheide. We danken het talrijke publiek. Voor straks wensen wij u uiteraard wel thuis. Wellicht zien we elkaar volgende week in Valkenburg. In ieder geval hoort u daar het stemgeluid van mijn collega van vandaag. Ik heb van hem genoten. Ik dank Nico Muiter uit België en wens hem volgende week veel succes samen met mijn collega Rien van Ork daar op de Kouberg.
Het was een waar genoegen om dit aan de zijde van Laurens van der Klunder te kunnen en mogen doen. Laurens, hartelijk dank. Dames en heren, wij nodigen u uit voor de wereldkampioenschappen veldrijden zaterdag en zondag aanstaande. Maak er vandaag in Hoogerheide nog een feestje van op de Brabantse Wal. En u was uiteraard een fantastisch publiek. Hartelijk dank voor al uw vocale steun. Kom veilig thuis en misschien tot zaterdag of zondag in Valkenburg. Thanks a lot everybody for your support today in Hoogerheide. And see you back again next Saturday.